Hey guys, welcome back to another impressions video, and today I'm going to talk about Metro Last Light for the PlayStation 3. And I'm usually holding the game in my hand, but I'm going to talk about the digital version of the game, courtesy of PlayStation Plus. This was a free game a couple months ago for both the North American and the European region of PlayStation Plus subscribers. So I'm really glad I picked one game because my PlayStation Plus backlog is growing rapidly every month. So I decided to tackle one of my games, one of my PlayStation Plus games, and I'm really glad I picked this one because Metro Last Light is a very solid first-person shooter that, in my opinion, the two strongest points in the game are the story and the gameplay. This game does a very good job of combining action with stealth and even survival horror elements, which it's not something unique, it's not something new in the genre, but this game does a very good job of presenting those gameplay mechanics in the game. So as I mentioned, one of the strongest points is the story, and it's no surprise. This game is based on an actual novel by a Russian author that his name escapes my mind at the moment, but the fact that this game is based on a novel, it's an indication that it has a very strong and very good narrative throughout the game. And this game is actually the sequel to Metro 2033, which was a 360 and PC game. Unfortunately, for some reason, the game did not come out for the PlayStation 3. But basically, the story deals with a nuclear war that happened in Russia, and it pretty much wiped out the entire population of the world, essentially. And the few remaining survivors, they hid underneath the metro areas in Russia. And the creatures, both the living creatures and the humans that were affected by the radiation, mutated over the years and became these weird creatures. So 20 years later, the remaining humans, I guess, they managed to send some kind of nuclear explosion to eradicate all these weird creatures that mutated over the years. And this game starts when apparently there's one remaining survivor of a species called the Dark Ones, which is I guess a mutated version of the humans that got affected by the radiation from the nuclear explosion. So there's one remaining Dark One out there, and your job is to find it and get rid of it to, I guess, secure a peace in humanity. But that's how the story starts, and as you progress through the game, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the story is very interesting, and it develops in a very good way that it's very interesting. And in some ways, this game is almost like a modern depiction of another world war, because as you progress through the game, there are different factions that fight against each other, and in the end it's all about the power and controlling different factions to one another, and it all boils down to power, and just you find some shady things going on in the background. So again, the story is very good, and at the end of each mission you get this narrative that it really helps you understand what's going on in the story, helps you understand the characters. And the cool thing is, throughout the game, as you play, the NPC characters in the game, they have conversations with one another, and I found myself stopping and listening to their conversations because it really adds to the story. Listening to the conversation by the NPCs, and it's really fun, and you can definitely tell that this game was based on a novel just because of the quality of their narrative and just the immersion factor that is generated from that. So the story, a positive point. And then the graphics in the game, I have to say they're pretty good. They're not the best, but it's pretty impressive considering the developer of this game, I believe it's called 4A Games or something. They're based in Ukraine, and they only developed 2 games so far, Metro 2033 and Metro Last Light. So a very impressive work. They even developed their own, I guess, engine for the game, so that's pretty impressive, and they did a pretty good job. If I have to pick highlights from the graphics, I would say the lighting effects are pretty good, and also the overall setting of the game, a very good art direction. This is perhaps the best post-apocalyptic setting that I've seen on a video game. It's just very realistic. It gives you that feeling of dread and that feeling of loneliness, of, you know, just mankind is pretty much gone and all you see is devastation around you, and a very somber, a very sad tone to the different environments in the game. So they did a very good job with the setting of the game. If you're into post-apocalyptic, you know, looking settings, give this game a try because it's very impressive. Now, as far as the sound and the soundtrack of the game, they're both very good. You know, the game being based on a novel means that it has a very strong narrative, and the script in this game is pretty good. And like I said, there are audio logs throughout the game that help you understand the story. And at the end of each mission, there's always an explanation. So, and then the soundtrack is pretty good, pretty appropriate. I really like the title track in the game, and so sound is very good. And another, you know, the story is one of the main strong points in the game, and if I have to pick another one, it would be the gameplay, because as I mentioned, this game does a very good job of combining different gameplay you know, mechanics. You can either opt to, when you're fighting against the humans, you can opt to have a stealthy approach, and you can either, when you're inside an area, you can try to bypass and not kill anybody, or you can kill the enemies but do it in a stealthy way. So that's a second approach that you can use. Or the third approach is go all out and just start shooting at the enemies. And at first I was trying to be stealthy just to, you know, challenge myself and see if I could you know, go by the areas without being caught. But as the game progressed, I really I just went all out and started, you know, using guns, and it's really fun because the gunplay in this game is very well done. It's really just fun shooting at things and people and creatures and whatnot. And the game allows you to carry up to 3 weapons, and weapons can be customized if you gather, you know, the in-game currency. So the more currency you have, the more you can upgrade your weapons, and you really have to do a solid job of knowing what weapons to pick. The game has, I believe, 20 or 20 plus weapons, and you can carry up to 3, and it's up to you to have a good balance on the weapons that you're carrying. So you have to think about the consequences of having good weapons for you know, medium range combat, long range combat, and close encounters. So and with that being said, the fourth element is the survival horror type of gameplay, in which you not only fight humans in this game, but also the mutated creatures, which they cannot attack you from afar, but they're very fast and they zigzag their way through to you in a very fast way. So you have to be ready. You have to have some pretty good reflexes to deal with them. And it's really scary because sometimes you get to an area and you get attacked left and right by these mutated creatures. So you have to be fast, you have to be on the move, and it's just really fun, the overall gunplay, and the fact how they manage to combine, you know, survival horror elements with stealth and with action. The game presents a very good balance that keeps the gameplay fresh until completion. With that being said, the game is not very long. It takes about, I'd say, I don't know, between 8 to 10 hours, and there's a couple collectibles in the game. Like I said, you have audio logs that you can collect to better understand the story of the game. And one thing that I really liked about the game is the structure, the overall structure. There are, I believe, over 30 missions in the game, but they're all very short. In fact, some of them you can probably beat them in like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, even less than that, 20 minutes. So this is actually a perfect candidate for having a Vita port, in my opinion, because the missions are short, they get to the point, and you know, it's perfect for a handheld version of the game. So I think it's very unlikely that we'll ever see a Vita version of this game, but I think the game was structured perfectly to have some kind of Vita port, and it's a shame because this game will definitely work as a handheld first-person shooter. And perhaps if I had to find a criticism on the game, will be that the game sometimes it's too linear. It's very linear. You know, you go from point A to point B, but again, that's a very minor complaint that I have about the game. because it's just a very enjoyable game. From start to finish. The setting is very good, the post-apocalyptic setting. The story is very strong, being based on a novel, and the game also has a morality system in which I do have to say that's another perhaps negative thing. The game being too linear, and then morality system, because I believe to get the best ending in the game you have to go through without killing any human enemies, which I think it affects a little bit as far as the story and the immersion that you have in the game, because you face enemy factions in the game that you really hate these people, and it really makes you want to have revenge on the enemies. So I couldn't imagine playing this game trying not to kill any human enemies, because the story somehow conflicts with that. It's a post-apocalyptic setting. I mean, you're fighting for your survival, and there are enemies out there that are trying to kill you. So it's very hard to justify not to go after the enemies. So I was not a very big fan of that morality system, or not a fan, but rather I think it was not necessary to have something like that. In games like BioShock, it's a little bit different, because the morality is based on saving or not an innocent little girl, the little sisters. But in this time around, it didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. To spare the lives of enemy soldiers that are out there trying to kill you. I guess those are my two negative points, but overall this is a very solid first-person shooter. I'm not really sure. I think the game has a multiplayer mode. I can't really remember, but if I were to recommend this game, I would say just play the single player, because it's very fun. The story is very strong, and again, if you're a PlayStation Plus member and you have downloaded the game, make sure you give it a try, because I think it's very worthy of the 8 to 10 hours that the game takes to complete. So if you guys enjoy first-person shooters, I say this is a must-play for you guys. If you don't really enjoy first-person shooters, I think it's worth checking the game out, just because of the strong story and the strong gameplay elements. It's really fun playing this game. So that's it for now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching.